Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Mo Bravo's Knife Reviews. This is Joe Bravo, and today I'd like to do another episode of what is your favorite action and who's got the best thwack. The first one I'm going to go with is my Holt V4 Specter. This is a discontinued knife by Holt Blade Works, and it is fantastic. This is a V4 iteration, so it's liner lock, and it fires like a rocket, and it drops shut like you wouldn't believe. I mean, it is fantastic. Best part about this for me is that my hands don't get in the way of any frame lock, such as the V3. Now, a lot of people like the V3. There's nothing wrong with the V3. For my personal preference, I don't like that my hands line up on the frame lock as they do. You know, yes, I could move my hands. It still fires like a rocket, and it still drops shut like you wouldn't believe. But to me, I like the liner lock better. So that is my opinion between the two V3 and V4. I just recently got a CKF SM special knife. This is a liner lock on bearings, very drop shutty. The deployment is a little on the slower side when you compare it to the Holts and the Shiros, but it is still plenty smooth, plenty hydraulic, and a really nice liner lock knife. Now we're going to get into the Shiro. F3R. This is the older model, liner lock, and this thing fires like you wouldn't believe. 95 millimeters of blade length, and it is one of my favorite knives. This is one of my keepers, and I think I'll always have a Shiro F3 variant in my collection no matter what. I do have an F95 NL on its way, and I'm very interested to see how that compares to the F3 series that I had. I've never owned an F95 variant. I've had a Hattie R, which was just as good, except for the lock bar issues that I tend to have, and I am very, very excited for the F95. Now I've got a Vero Impulse. This is the Gen 2 variant, and this thing fires like a rocket. I mean, look at that. It is out of control. The drop shut, you gotta watch your fingers. You can thumb deploy this. I mean, this is a lot of fun. You can reverse spider flick it. For the price point, if you don't have an Impulse, pay the money. Buy one on the secondary. They're fantastic. I like them better than the Axons. I like them better than the Synapses, but that's really because I got big hands. And if I had smaller hands, I'm sure I'd like the Synapse and the Mini Impulse better. I cannot wait for the Isotope that's coming out in May, and I'm hoping that it is half as good as the Impulse is, because it's just hysterically fun to manipulate. Next is the Koenig ARIUS. This is a Gen 4, Batch 4, in January of 2021, and this is every bit of the staple. Between the Holts, the Shiros, and the Koenigs, I feel like everybody out there is playing catch up, because this just has one hell of an action. I mean, just smooth as butter, drop shut like you wouldn't believe. I mean, it is incredible, just incredible. Next, I'm going to go with my Olamic, and this thing deploys just as fast as the Shiro, as the Holtz, as the Koenig. Ready? I mean, I get impressed every time I don't want to like this knife. I deploy it, and I can't stand how fast. This might be one of the fastest deployment knives I have, and it's such a satisfying click when it gets into deployment that it is a ball to play with. Really nice knife by Olamic. They do great stuff. If you haven't had a chance to hold one of those yet. Now I'm going to get into the two knives that I really have been coveting as of late. This is the Brown Knives LHCX V1, which is a liner lock. Hooray, hooray. I tried the LHC, and it just didn't fit my hand right because of the liner locks. But look at that. I mean, drop shut ceramic bearings. I talked to Craig, the maker, who told me don't lube those up, keep them dry, and they will work just fine. I mean, look at that. No lubrication, nothing to get dirty, and just rocket ship on its way out. Great usable edge, comfortable, no hot spots. I mean, I love this stupid knife. I mean, it is fantastic. And it sucks that they don't make these anymore with the liner lock. The bolster lock is great. There's nothing wrong with it. But I just think that the liner lock is the bee's knees. This red twill is sexy as fuck. And I love it. I really do. Now, I'd like to show my last knife that I really covet is the Cortex. I mean, if you haven't played with these and if you haven't seen my videos, nothing is as satisfying to manipulate as this knife. Drop shut, multiple deployments. I mean, it is my favorite. You know what? And I will say that I think the Cortex is my favorite knife at this moment. It has been for the last couple of weeks. And I'm telling you, it is every bit of the hype that I have been calling on. I mean, I've got 3 of them. It's out of control. The last knife I didn't have on the board, I forgot I had, is the CKF Rotten Evo 2.0, the Dark TI Damascus clip. And I really think that this needs to be on the list as well. I do have a CKF switch that I've got all boxed up, getting rehomed. That's another one with a great action. I don't think it's as good as the ones on the board right now. I will say that it is plenty fast on the deployment. But, you know, maybe you could compare it to the Vero. The Impulse has a great action, and it's got a great drop shut. But a lot of that drop shut is because of the weight of the blade. And I feel like the Switch is kind of like that as well. It's got a heavy blade stock where if you compare that to the SM Special knife, you know, it's a thin blade stock. It's the action that's really making it drop shut as smoothly as it does. I mean, it's really impressive. The same thing goes with the Cortex and the LHC. I mean, look at the blade stock on these. You know, they're tiny. This is not the weight that is causing that drop shuttiness. It is the action. You know, the CKF Evo. You know, it's a lot to do with the blade stock. But it is a really sweet action. And again, when I reverse Spidey flicked the Koenig, I said, you know, let me make sure I get the Rotten in there. Now, if you want to go for my favorites, I really think the 2 Browns are out of control. The Cortex is absolutely my favorite. The LHCX V1, if it had a, you know, reverse Spidey hole, it probably would be my favorite. The action on it is so positive every time I deploy that. I mean, solid click, you feel it the whole way through the scales, and it's a great edge. I use this knife all the time, and I really enjoy it. You know, the Alamic I'd put to the side. This polished version of the Koenig is unrivaled in my experience. I'd like to get a DLC coated blade and a carbon fiber. I had a couple of Gen 2s, but I'd love to get a Gen 4 variant and make it into a user because this thing's just too pretty to use. But man, what an action. And just, that reverse Spidey flick is out of control. The Impulse, I will say, is probably one of my favorite non-American, non-Russian knives. It is a lot of fun to play with. You can manipulate it in so many different ways, and it's a lot of fun. The drop shuttiness really does have to do with the thick blade stock. You know, just to give you a little comparison, look at the difference between the blade stocks. I mean, night and day. Night and day. For those of you who haven't, you know, heard of Brown Knives or Craig and all the amazing stuff that he's doing, you know, you got to take a look and you got to check it out. It is out of control. The Shiro, we already talked about it. I'd say this is probably my top 3 knives right now. And, you know, you're going to say, Joe, you've got a Holt in your hand. You know, you got a $1,700 knife. How is that not one of your favorites? And I put it in search of out for a Holt Specter with a Stonewash 2.0. I feel that the Stonewash on the original is a mirror Stonewash finish. And although it looks great, I don't think I'd ever want to use this knife with that type of finish. Where, you know, you compare that to the finish on the Shiro, and you compare it to the finish on the Koenig. This is the bright wash finish. You know, you could actually use these blades without having to worry about, you know, marking up your knife or having that one scratch be the thing or the only thing that you can see after you use your knife. And I think it's important to talk about the Impulse. I am a huge fan of the Stonewash on the Impulse. I think Riot is doing Best Tech, excuse me, is doing a great job putting that finish on the edge. I mean, it is great. You know, you can mark that up all you want, and it'll just disappear inside that Stonewash. And I think it also needs to be said, I think, you know, Craig and Brown Knives has one of the best Stonewashes out there. It's fantastic. It really is. You know, and then you look at the hand-rubbed blade of the Rotten. I mean, it is beautiful. I would feel bad using this knife. I really would. It is a spectacular looking knife between the Damascus and the hand rub blade. It is amazing. But, you know, is it a top 3 knife? No. For me, my top 3 knives would be the Shiro, F3, any of those variants, the Cortex, any of the 3 that I have, and the Koenig ARIUS. And I will say, this is stupid to say, I had a Gen 2, I had a Gen 3, I had a Gen 2 full weight, I had a Gen 2 lightning pocket. The Gen 4 batch 4 seems to have one of the nicest actions around. I don't know, because they were new. I had a Gen 4 batch 3. It was nice, don't get me wrong, it was my first, you know, Koenig ARIUS, but I will tell you this right now. I think the Gen 4 batch 4s are out of control. And these polished variants, if you haven't found one, I mean, they are spectacular. Look at the chamfer. Look at that blade. I mean, it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. You can see the flats, nice and polished. They got this Stonewash floating backspacer. I mean, it is out of control. It really is. And I really think everybody should have a Koenig ARIUS. But I will say, I would rather have the Cortex as my EDC any day of the week over the ARIUS. And I think I would rather have the Shiro as the user, just because that blade shape and the deployment, the fact that it's on carbon fiber, the Stonewash or that Shiro finish on the blade, I don't think it would ever show up any of the use. And if it did, you know, you could take a little bit of mothers to it and clean it up and not have a problem with it. So, you know, in conclusion, I really think that the Brown Cortex is my favorite knife to have as an everyday carry. I think if I was going to use a knife, I think that the Shiro F3R or F3NS variant would probably be one of my favorite users to have in my pocket. I think the Koenig ARIUS, especially in this polished variant, is one of the best looking knives out there today. And then I will say that, you know, the Holt Specter is probably my overall favorite knife as a standpoint to manufacturing, design, comfort, the drop shut. And if I could find one of these in the Stonewash 2.0, or there's even one on, you know, the Facebook page right now in a black wash blade, something that I could use on a daily basis that I wouldn't cry about. And I know it's a knife, but that's a pretty knife. And, you know, I'm glad I sold my mirror finish or near mirror finish blades because they're just too nice to use. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. This is a fantastic, fantastic, fantastic knife in the V3 or the V4 variant. Of course, I'm going to like the V4 better, but I'm rambling, and I haven't done a video in a long time, and I'm sorry about that. My wife and I had COVID come through the house, and, you know, it's difficult to spend some time focusing on the knives, and apologize for not being able to give you guys some new content. I don't even know if this was informative or just my objective view on things, but I really have been enjoying the 4 knives on the table right now. 5 if you include the Rotten, 6 if you include the LHCX, and 7 if you include the Impulse. I mean, I don't even have a spot for it on the board, but I will tell you, the knives that you see here on this board are probably all keepers inside my collection. I'll always have one of each of these in the collection. That's really how much that I'm enjoying them. So kudos to Joseph Vero on his design on all his knives. The Impulse is certainly my favorite. Craig Brown is killing it, and I cannot wait to see what the Cortex V2 is going to be. He's going to cost me some fucking money because I'm going to have to buy another one. Whatever the Cortex V2 is, I wish he would tell us. Well, we don't know. Hopefully we'll find out during Blade Show, but I'm fucking excited. There's no doubt about that. Koenig, I'm again pissed that I can't go to Blade Show. If you follow Bill's Instagram, he has been showing some mighty fine stuff out there. And it looks pretty, and that's going to cost me some money too. Will I ever get rid of my polished Koenig ARIUS? Probably not. It is certainly one of my favorites. So, you know, when it comes to Shiros, like I said, whether it's the F3NS or the F3R, I think I'm leaning towards the F3R, only because this jimping is a little less aggressive than the F3NS. The blade shape doesn't bother me, and it's awfully comfortable no matter what. I can't wait to get those F95 variants in, and the F3NS. I'll do another comparison video of those 3 Shiros. If you haven't had a Rotten yet, get one, pocket it. It is a ball of fun. I really think everybody should at least try one. I know they're difficult to get, but get one before the 3.0s come out, because you know if the 3.0s are out, that just means the 2.0s are going to go up just like the 1.0s are. And, you know, if you could find a Holt Specter, I'd say get it. If you could find it under $1,500, buy 2. They're fantastic knives. They're only going to go up in value. And, you know, when people say who's got the best action, there's a reason why Holt's on the top of that list. But, well, thanks for checking in. I appreciate it. You guys have a lovely day. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks.